pointed this out. Australians aged in their 30s and 40s are experiencing unprecedented, and in some cases, world-leading rates of 10 different types of cancer, and scientists are desperate to understand why. As cancers in young rise, the pandemic response must be probed. Well, surely it couldn't be getting that, chemical concoction injected into our bodies.
Disruptive.
Weird thing to happen. So Australia put this out. This is from IBC. I just love saying that. IBC. Or sometimes I'll go onto YouTube and watch their current affair. 60 Minutes Australia. I love Australian culture. I gotta admit, I love Australia. I love, people, and including their accent. But this is concerning. So IBC pointed this out. Australians aged in their 30s and 40s are experiencing unprecedented, and in some cases, world-leading rates of 10 different types of cancer, and scientists are desperate to understand why. This is sadly, this is not new. This is sadly not new information that we're getting, because we've seen reports of this alarming trend of younger and younger people experiencing cancer symptoms that they have never seen before. That there's an alarming trend of healthy adults that, don't smoke, or, they're healthy as can be. They can exercise and diet right. And they're getting this big spike in people with cancer diagnosis. And they're trying to figure out why that is. So, in the article from IBC, they say Chris Burton was planning his wedding when he noticed he was bleeding after going to the bathroom. He thought it was strange, but figured it was a one-off. 6 weeks later, it happened again. His GP referred him for a colonoscopy, and Mr. Burton arranged to have the procedure after he and his wife returned from their short honeymoon. The 39-year-old had advanced bowel cancer. The test results stunned him. That's probably similar to a lot of young people. Cancer's not at the forefront of what you think might be wrong with you, he says. Australians aged in their 30s and 40s are experiencing unprecedented, and in some cases, world-leading rates of at least 10 different types of cancers, and scientists are desperate to understand why. It's a question Mr. Byrne has struggled with since his diagnosis, and one that's arrived at what should be a joyous time. The couple's about to have a baby, a little sister for their older daughter, Isobel. I guess that's their version of Isabel. Isobel. Cute. That's the 3 a.m. thoughts that go through your head. Have you done something to deserve it? Mr. Burns said. The technical term for this phenomenon is early onset cancer and is rising steeply. Data provided to Four Corners by Cancer Australia, the federal government's cancer agency, paints a concerning picture for young people. Between 2000 and 2024, in 30 to 39-year-olds, early onset prostate cancer increased by 500%, pancreatic cancer by 200%, liver cancer by 150%, uterine cancer by 138%, and kidney cancer by 85%. Some increases, such as prostate cancer, might be explained by changes in the way they're diagnosed, but most cannot. There are approximately 10 cancers that have this increase to varying percentages, says Cancer Australia's chief executive, Dorothy Keffe. Cancer has traditionally been diagnosed of aging and bowel cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, and they all increase with age. But, quote, over the last 20 years, there's been it's small in absolute numbers, but is a real increase in the number of younger adults developing these cancers. So, like I said, this is sadly and most shocking at the fact that this is not new information. And we're just learning about this information now from these outlets that are finally coming forward with this rise of people that are genuinely healthy and can do the right thing, and they're getting these diagnoses of harmful cancer diagnosis. So, what is the alarming trend? What exactly is the cause of all this? So HealthBot says young people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s are developing aggressive and rapidly growing turbo cancers. We've heard that before. I've heard that before. Turbo cancer. That was something that was discussed by Dr. Pierre Corey. That was something that was discussed by Dr. Robert Malone. That was something discussed by Dr. Peter McCullough when talking about the adverse effects of getting the through COVID, that there was a potential for this thing called turbo cancers, where younger adults get diagnosis and it sparks up more and more of these active cancer cells to cause this diagnosis. So Dr. William Mackis, who we've shown before, that's the guy that's being sued by the province of Alberta for treating people with cancer. Dr. William Mackis, who has diagnosed 20,000 cancer patients in his career, says, I have never seen anything like this before. So he's going to explain to this host here, being a cancer oncologist, about the rise of younger people getting these turbo cancers.
There are only a handful out of the 100,000 doctors, Canadian doctors, that didn't take the vaccine that are still practicing medicine. So it's something like 99.9% vaccination rate. And they were the first ones to line up for their vaccines. Well, as I started looking at the sudden deaths of Canadian doctors, I realized, yes, most of them are dying from cardiac issues, heart injuries, cardiac arrests, dying while jogging or swimming, dying in their sleep. And Dr. Peter McCullough has talked about this extensively, about the myocarditis and the damage to the heart, the scarring to the heart. And then some were dying from blood clots, pulmonary emboli, strokes. But then there was quite a large subset of doctors who were developing extremely aggressive cancers. And cancers at an age that they shouldn't be getting. So, for example, there was a doctor who developed gastric cancer in his 30s. Presented at stage 4, he was dead in less than a year. Very rare brain cancers in young individuals in their 20s and 30s, medical students, medical residents. And these cancers would always present at stage 4, and they would always kill them in a matter of a few months, and it was always less than a year. And, at first I didn't know, what the term for this was or what the phenomenon was. I just started, really paying attention to it, tracking it. I then, realized that this is being called turbo cancer by people on social media. Turbo cancer is not a medical term, but it's a term that people came up with to really describe the extremely aggressive nature of these cancers in the COVID vaccinated. And these cancers behave completely differently, unlike anything I've seen before in my career. And I've diagnosed over 20,000 cancer patients in my career with cutting-edge PET CT, positron emission tomography imaging, CT, MRI, pathological correlation. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen stage 4 breast cancers presenting in women in their 20s. I've never seen stage 4 colon cancers presenting in men and women in their, 20s, 30s. Leukemias that will kill you in a matter of days or even hours after diagnosis. Lymphomas that, again, kill you in a matter of months.
So that is a cancer oncologist. That's a medical doctor who's treated people, over 20,000 people with cancer diagnosis, telling you that there's definitely concern of rising people and these turbo cancers, which is not, he said it's not a medical term, but that's the phenomenon that people are describing when cancer cells are being accelerated by what he claims to be the, but I could tell you for YouTube's sake and purpose that that's just one doctor's opinion, and the vaccines are very safe and effective according to YouTube standards. But he's right to be alarmed by this, and people should be alarmed by this. That healthy adults, healthy individuals that don't smoke, don't drink, that eat the right foods, that exercise daily, that are healthy as can be, are all of a sudden developing these symptoms, developing these diagnoses that are completely out of their control, that they don't know where it came about, and in some cases lead to fatality. And it just seems like we're getting more and more of this information. You're seeing now Australia reporting this out, but as I stated, this sadly is not anything new to people. Like this case, a woman, 27 years old, diagnosed with colon cancer, shares one symptom doctors keep dismissing. The young bride had to postpone her wedding after her diagnosis. She's part of a significant rise in people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s being diagnosed with colon cancer. Well, I wonder what symptom or what cause or what statement these doctors are completely ignoring. I wonder what that is. I wonder if it's similar to what that doctor, Dr. William Mackis, is being sued for by the province of Alberta. You know, Danielle Smith saying that she was going to be transparent when it came to COVID. Turns out that was a lie. Turns out that even the premier of Alberta, when she says the right thing, has a bunch of boogeymen surrounding her to convince her otherwise. That's the state of politics, folks. You could say the right thing. You could do the right thing, but you're bought up. You're complacent. You're part of the club, no matter what. Here's this. This is from the Daily Mail. Global cancer phenomenon. It's not just America. The UK, Japan, South Africa, and Australia are among dozens of countries suffering mysterious spikes of all different types of tumors in young people. These are healthy individuals. And as Joe Rogan even stated, Joe Rogan, who they've demonized and attacked for spreading medical misinformation, even though Joe Rogan has had numerous doctors, oncologists, scientists, medical advisors on periodically. He got prescribed ivermectin by his own doctor. He even stated that it seems very weird that these healthy grown adults that are eating right, are exercising, they're living healthy lifestyles, are getting these adverse side effects. And we all kind of had the reason why. It's kind of obvious what's happened in the past couple of years, but no one is willing to address that because they know that we have been captured and taken over by the big pharmaceutical industry. The same big pharmaceutical industry that's cheering on this and is hoping for more of these diagnoses so they can capitalize off of more people becoming patients. As the saying goes, it's better to be sick and have more patients than it is to cure people. That's the motto of the big pharmaceutical industry. So they're applauding this. How about this from Science Alert? This article. Cancers in adults under 50 have increased dramatically around the globe. That's from 2022. That was a couple of years ago. This came out. That cancers people under 50 years of age have increased dramatically. I wonder what the case may be. Here's Rear Clear Health. As cancers in young rise, the pandemic response must be probed. Well, surely it couldn't be getting that, chemical concoction injected into our bodies. We were told it's very safe and effective by, Rachel Maddow, by the CBC, by Justin Trudeau, by Chrystia Freeland, that made those obvious fake edited videos of them getting injected. By Albert Bourla, who's a veterinarian who was in charge of the response to COVID. By Anthony Fauci, who is a mastermind criminal, who's an evil psychopath. By Bill Gates, who barely finished college, who barely knows how to program. He was telling you, because everyone trusts Bill Gates, the health advisor. So surely it couldn't be the pandemic. Surely it couldn't be the you got that's affected a lot of people, including myself. It surely couldn't be that. Well, as we're talking about Australia, from Reuters, Australia hits magnificent milestone. That's their quote. Australia hits magnificent milestone with 80% rate of vaccinations. So, I'm not going to say it for the sake that I'm on YouTube, and we know that YouTube is brought to you by Big Pharma, brought to you by Google, brought to you by the CIA, brought to you by the worst that are silently cheering this on. But you can put two and two together. You can figure out the puzzle yourself. That 80% rate of vaccinations in Australia, and then all of a sudden, their IBC News is reporting a significant rise in 30 and 40-year-olds that are developing these turbo cancer symptoms. And I've heard this from doctors. I've heard this from oncologists. I've heard this from medical journals. I've heard this all around. And while people still want to demonize someone like me for spreading misinformation or being a complete conspiracy nut or anti-vax or whatever the case may be, I have heard this all before. That was pretty much all the early 2020s that people are hounding down on me for this, that claiming that, well, you're not a scientist, you're not a doctor, so what the hell do you know? Shut the hell up. You're right. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. But you know what? There are doctors and scientists that have studied this, that I'm looking at their work, that I'm examining their scientific inquiries, that I'm questioning their science and then making my own conclusions, which is what we're supposed to be doing as a society. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be questioning science. We don't believe it. It's not a religion. It's not like you going to church and believing the pastor. Science requires questioning. Science requires inquiries from different perspectives. And since we were not allowed to share any other inquiries, other than the fact that it's safe and effective and everyone needs to get jabbed up, or you can't go on a train or a plane or where elsewhere, makes me really, really, really suspicious of the whole concept. And that's coming from someone who got the jab, who didn't know at the time, who, is kicking themselves that if I knew better, that I should have, paid a little more attention. I'm still kicking myself on the fact that it was kind of suspicious and it should have been the red flag of concern that while there was an outbreak in China, an outbreak in Italy of this virus that we have no idea about that was contracting so many different people, why were we sending charter jets to pick up people in these areas that are highly contagious and bring them back home? Why would we do that? If we're so concerned about the virus, if we don't want the virus to spread, why are we picking up people that are in these areas to bring them back home to Canada so that possibly they can infect here back at home? It just seems crazy. And that should have been the red flag that woke me up to this. But of course, I didn't see it right away. I ended up getting 2 shots of Pfizer. The second shot just affected me deeply. I'm still getting, adverse effects from that. But let it be. This is just the way it is. And now we're seeing the worst of the worst. But obviously, we kind of know what's happening, but they don't want to admit to it. They don't want to admit to it because the pharmaceutical mafia, just like the war mafia, just like any other heinous, powerful structure, has overridden the principles of science. They have taken over medicine. They have taken over doctors. They have taken over the industry. I mean, you look at who's the surgeon from Stanford that I'm blanking on the name. Casey and Callie Means, who wrote the book about how food is nutrition and how it's important to have proper diet as a form of medicine. And they even explained on podcasts that when they went to medical school, they weren't trained in any of this. They weren't trained about immunity. They weren't trained about how food can exist as a medicine to help people, that changes in diet and lifestyle and things that we could be doing right now can benefit your better health. They weren't told this. They were told to go out there, start a practice, get patients in, and prescribe them a bunch of pills. That'll just make them sicker and weaker and give them more pills and more pills and more pills so that the pharmaceutical lobby can capitalize off that. So, there you go. Alarming rate. And they still don't want to know why. Still don't know why. Interesting.